Hi, I'm Jessie.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and you're listening to Your Therapist is Not Okay.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about part two regarding all the ways the hierarchy within the LGBTQIA population can actually feel like it can deny rights and privileges, even care towards individuals, especially those who are trans folk. July is Queer Rage Month, and we wanted to pick up on that. And now to talk about ways that we can actually support one another within the community.
So, last time we spent a lot of time talking about some of the ways we see hierarchy come in the LGBTQIA2S plus community, and we noticed the ways that certain people, based on their identities, based on their appearance, get to be really celebrated, get to have a lot of privilege, and maybe we have forgotten in some places to show up for folks who are not just uncomfortable, but actually in danger. And we talked a lot about the very immediate danger that, in particular, a lot of trans and gender expansive folks are facing globally,
Yes.
but in particular with some political changes in the United States, with things like the licenses and passports being changed or revoked so that they don't match someone's identity, and then they're at risk of having an ID that doesn't match who they are and who they look like, and that puts them in a lot of risk to be abused by law enforcement or other strangers. And we talked about transmisogyny. We went through also just our own remembering and experiences of a lot of progress seemingly happening in the 2000s and the 2010s, and then noticing a lot of that backsliding. And Jesse and I kind of reflecting on, was there really progress, or was everything just kind of waiting in the wings to sweep in and take those temporarily granted rights away?
Absolutely. I think I came away from that realizing that there can be so much discomfort in the community. For myself, when I'm mislabeled, for us, when we are walking down the street and like wondering, do I show up the way I want to? And how discomfort is so different than danger, than
Mhm.
fear. And of course, we're going to have those same things we were talking about last episode. But when it's inherently systemic and when it's actually part of your day to day, that is very different. We
Mhm.
talked about bathrooms and how a lot of times women, cis white women usually, are getting thrown under the bus to be seen as being fearful of trans folk.
Mhm.
And how this kind of creates this scapegoat really of a problem that creates more and more systemic violence towards those who can't just express who they want to be
Mhm.
authentically.
We even kind of touched on the disturbing trend that has shown up of some folks wanting the LGB without the Q or the T, and being very vocal about that and kind of wanting to cut those more controversial, I don't know the right word, these, more in danger, more at risk parts of our community out in order to kind of save face or put distance between us and them. Um, and that distance is not helpful. And those lines are not as clear as one would think as well. Like there are ways in which I do walk with a lot of privilege because I'm very masculine presenting, but I am non-binary as well. So like there are ways in which there's
Mm.
comfort and discomfort, and we really alienate and betray ourselves as well as our community members when we make that kind of stand. So we really want to emphasize basically the opposite, which I'm talking about as being getting radically pro-trans and not shutting up about it.
Yes, I think that's actually our number one point that we want to make first and foremost. What's a way that we can help? Exactly that, bringing it up, talking about these things. This is not an issue that's going to go away, but it might get less media attention. It is up to us
Hmm.
as allies and those who care within the community to actually allow this to be a forever topic, that we are not safe until we're all safe, and that human rights are have to be a given. in all expressions of authenticity. And I think that that is the first thing that we can do. Be uncomfortable
Mm.
and keep bringing it up.
Yeah, being willing to broach that topic, and being willing to be self-reflective about yourself, the spaces you're in, the events you go to, and think, would a trans person or would a woman or someone from a different letter of the alphabet of identities feel comfortable in this space? Would they be actively welcomed? Would they be ostracized? Would they be made to feel pushed away? And then you can ask yourself, is there something I can do that would welcome them more? Or is this the kind of event that is actually aligned with what I want to do and what the community wants to do? It's okay to have events and experiences and spaces that are just for particular groups of people. And in fact, it's really important to respect and honor these spaces that are just for trans and gender expansive folks because there's a different sense of safety amongst just your peers. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everything you do has to be about that, but start to be a little bit critical, especially if the place that you're at is like the main gay pride event
Mm,
and you're there and you're thinking, oh, I actually don't think everyone would feel comfortable here or safe here. That's the main event. That's not the side event that's
yes.
for a particular identity group, an affinity group of some sort. Just be really thoughtful about that and then be vocal about it. Bring it up to your friends. Bring up stuff to your family. Part of the thing that makes it being radically pro-trans for me at least is we'll get a lot of pushback from some folks, maybe especially family or friends that are a little bit further on the right than us on the spectrum who maybe have questions about specific people or exceptions or scapegoats like, oh, well, what about rapists? Or what about places where there's kids? There's people always have these weird caveats that are like, oh, but
Yes.
how are the women going to be safe? How are the kids going to be safe?
Yes.
I'm in a space now where I'm not interested in debating these little
No.
niche things that people bring up. There are ways of getting around their discomfort with people who are different than them. So I don't care. I'm just pro-trans through and through. What about
Yes.
trans people should be able to use the bathroom? No questions, no caveats.
This isn't a debate.
Right.
You're going to have to be uncomfortable. I said it
Mhm.
before, I'm going to say it again. These conversations will not make you the most popular person if you're in a group of people that want to abide by status quo, whatever society is kind of adopting. You're going to probably maybe lose some people in your life that might have very different political opinions than you. And you're going to have to be happy about that. Because at the end of the day, you're standing up for some people that have no voice right now, if not
Mhm.
for the whole community standing up for them. We do not get to pick and choose what legislature we like. We have to constantly be vigilant on who we care about,
Mhm.
even when it's not just impacting ourselves. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, Ryan, that recognizing what spaces am I comfortable in? Is everybody? How is that kind of acquiescence to kind of normative values going to hurt another person? Is my silence hurting another person? And the answer is probably yes. You not saying anything is the same with any marginalized group, and it's going
Mhm.
to be the same here. Saying the tough thing is not always popular. And
Mhm.
that's actually incredible because at the end of the day, you can look at yourself in the mirror and be like, yeah, I still did the hard thing when there were consequences for it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you never know who's going to be around that it matters to. You might
Mm,
you might change someone's mind, you might not. But also, even if you don't think that there's anyone trans or gender expansive in the room, that doesn't mean they're not there. It just means they haven't felt safe yet to share that
mm,
with you or to share that with someone else in the group. So you never know who's going to be witnessing that. Or maybe there's younger folks around too, and that can be something that they end up taking on gradually as well. That like, oh, okay, I should support people in every community. I don't need to take other people's rights away or knock them down in order to be safe. That does not
mm.
make safety.
Yes.
when we're thinking about sharing spaces with trans and non-binary folks, or anyone who has different identities than us as well, we kind of wanted to bring up the idea of being thoughtful and intentional about the comments that we have, that we say to other people, that we say directly to someone who we think might have that identity, whether we know for sure or not.
Yes. This one comes up a lot when I'm
Mm,
working with trans folk. Then if you are gender expansive and you're listening to this right now, you probably have like an immediate comment that made you feel incredibly dismissed, unsafe, or just devalued.
mm,
And so for any of us that want to talk about trans individuals, ask yourself this question. Am I being helpful or hurtful? And a very good example of this is being like, oh, I can tell you're trans. That immediately creates this understanding that you have to pass as the gender that you are trying to embody in order to conform to that narrative. That is
mm,
bad. That perpetuates so much violence in that language. Also, what are you trying to prove? Do you
mhm,
want a prize that you somehow like cracked the code? Like what?
mhm,
Who is that helpful for? Why not? Your outfit is fabulous. That's enough. If you have to say something or you want to comment, you can say something that makes that person smile. And you have the absolute responsibility of thinking, what would I want? And that
mhm,
empathy is going to be your key to how we chat. You don't have to have every answer. You can be ignorant on certain things, but your ignorance cannot cause harm. That's no excuse.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's just not something that we need to be making this distinction about all the time and highlighting when that's just for us. And when we were kind of thinking about this dynamic, something that came to my mind is that like not everyone wants that kind of visibility and attention. Right. So you shouldn't be drawing attention and visibility to something, to someone's experience if you don't know without a question that they want that. And those are friends or folks that you know well that you've had that kind of conversation before, and so you know from them that that's something that they wanted, that they have asked for, to say like, hey, could I have those conversations for myself? Whatever that whatever that kind of conversation has been, you have to know explicitly that someone is consenting to being visible in that way. A lot
Hmm.
of these kind of noticing someone's transness or someone's gender identity that is unconventional is one of the ways that we talk about people being clocked. Like we talk about a lot of different kinds of clocking now. It's become a very common phrase, but that was actually a phrase that indicated danger. That
Yes.
indicated like I have been clocked, and so now I'm not safe at that
Hmm.
store or in that place or at that street corner. And there's lots of examples of media in this. Like the show Pose did a really good example of that with a woman being clocked in a photo shoot, and then it led to abuse and violence being enacted towards her. So it's a media example, but it's a media example because there are many real life examples that kind of have led to a need to depict the danger that folks face
Yes.
with clocking. So be so intentional about how you're doing that. What space are you in? Do you know this person? And do you know, again, without question, that they
Yes.
want that visibility?
Absolutely. And then ask yourself, like, am I the person to do that?
Mhm,
You're probably not. If you
mhm,
don't know them, you're probably not the person to have that conversation with.
mhm.
Just like anyone else on the street that you want to be respectful to. I think that's exactly it. Also, Pose is an excellent show. Great
Very good.
example. It's so good. If you haven't checked it out, you really should. It combines like just raw honesty with some pretty funny ass bits in there.
It is very funny and it is very raw and intense. Yeah. A lot of stuff about gay and queer experiences and trans experience, people of
Yeah,
color, the ballroom scene in New York City back in the day.
yeah,
So there's a lot there. It's very rich.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Ryan, you went to Fire Island recently and you were chatting with me about your
Mm,
experience. And one of the things that you really were excited about going to, but you weren't able to, was actually being able to go to the invasion on Fire Island. And you and I were just chatting about that. And I thought maybe that this would be a cool place to bring it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing it up. Yeah, so the invasion is on July 4th, for those of you that don't know. And it's a big historic moment. I've never been there for it. And July 3rd was the last day of my trip to Fire Island. So I just barely missed it. Thought about going back for a day trip. Things didn't pan out. Um, but want to just talk a little bit about this way of resistance through joy and celebration. That kind of the act of it becomes a monument in a sense. It becomes something that is done over and over again and it creates a significant presence in the pop culture mind. So essentially what happened in the Fire Island invasion, um, and it was 50 years ago. Actually, this was the 50th anniversary. Um, There's two queer communities on Fire Island that are like half a mile apart. One is the Pines and one is Cherry Grove. Pines has historically been very kind of white, racist, cis gay. Cherry Grove has been a bit more queer, a lot of lesbians there, a little bit just more open-minded of a place. The island as a whole has its historical problems with not being as accepting about of diversity as it should be. But uh, a group of folks from Cherry Grove went over to the Pines to have dinner. One of them was in drag, and they were asked to leave because of the drag. It was this moment where folks were really worried about how gay people were going to be perceived because they wanted to be normative enough to be under the radar, stealth, accepted by larger society. So they sent them away. And that was on, I think it was on July 3rd. It was very close to July 4th. So on July 4th, a bunch of folks dressed in drag, including professional queens and working queens from the city, and filled the ferries and came over to Fire Island Pines and invaded in drag, just filled the island and filled the clubs and everything. And it was just this huge statement of we're here
Mhm.
and we're not going anywhere, and this
Yes.
divisiveness within the community is not acceptable.
Yes.
And now it's reenacted every 4th of July. And it be has become this kind of joyful monument to that resistance moment. Um, and it's become a big deal. It's become a big thing. I do
Mm.
have kind of a curiosity around it where I have kind of thought, often there are ways in which acts of resistance over time kind of get
Mm.
diluted and then wrapped into the mainstream in a way that they can kind of start to become the original problem that they were resisting.
I was going to ask you about that. If the
Yeah.
original problem for the Pines was that it was pretty white, cis, gay, male,
Mm.
has that changed over time because of this resistance? That would be a good marker of it.
I don't have like data per se, so I think it's probably marginally better than it was, but it's still an issue. And it's also a pretty huge class issue as well. It's an
Mm.
extremely expensive place to go. And
Mm.
so a lot of folks don't go. And of course, different communities are impacted differently by cost as well, like based on just historical wealth, um, as well. So I would say it is still a problem.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And it's gotten a little bit wrapped back in to being a party for cis gay men for a lot
Okay.
of it. It's a party for many, many people, right? And I haven't been, so I'm not like passing severe judgment. I still want to go and experience it for myself some year, but it is like an $80 ticket to go to the dance party. And if it's anything like every other day at the pavilion, it's going to be 99% men, if not more, 99% cis men. And there'll be some other folks, but not so many. And the majority will be white, probably. So it is maybe just another gay circuit party
Mm.
in some regards. Now, that's the party at the end of the night. people still all dress in drag and try to do this celebration and reenactment during the daytime when they come in. And I'm sure some of the drag flows into the night as well. So I
Mm,
don't want to paint it as all bad because it has become this kind of monument of resistance. But I do
yes.
want to say the ways in which those things can get manipulated, especially when money comes into the picture and it becomes about corporate sponsorships. And to my knowledge, that's not a thing um, with the invasion, but that's the thing with Pride. And we're talking about Pride as well, right? So
Yeah.
Pride becomes more and more fun dancing in the street, which dancing in the street is great, but the niche groups, the groups who are in the most danger and risk get kind of pushed further and further out.
Yeah. And also they were the ones who were in Stonewall, who were the like originators of like how we would actually protest. Protest as party often takes away those who started the protest to make it
Hmm.
more normative. At the same time, I think we still allow that joy as resistance to be something really impactful, to realize that we can still fight and keep fighting, even when kind of, I'm going to call it the system,
Mm.
tries to incorporate it to take away the meaning. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that the fight didn't matter.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still something in the joy where it's, just being a party and just being focused on an individual person's fun, like is maybe a bit of a concern. However, if you are creating spaces that are joyful and celebrating trans
Mm,
folks, that are joyful and celebrating lesbians, that are joyful and celebrating gay men, like if there is joy and celebration that is being fostered and made space for, and that you're making space for other folks who maybe have less access and privilege than you. And it doesn't have to be that you're throwing a party per se for this group of people because we don't all have the resources and capacity for
mm.
that. But
Yeah.
even just little things like I love your outfit. I'm glad that I ran into you here. You're really cool. Like
Yeah.
just little things that make people feel welcome and joyful. I do also want to highlight that there are certain pride events everywhere in the world that are still more focused on that resistance, that are still more focused on
Mm,
addressing the
yes.
gaps in the community.
Yes. I think that that understanding of celebration is maybe more important than we ever give credit for.
Mm,
There's all these kind of cliches, but they all matter of like you never know who you're going to impact. That the comments that you make that make someone smile might be the very thing that makes them feel safe,
hmm
makes them feel seen and loved, but also makes them feel celebrated. And it kind of reminds me of earlier this week, a client said something that has stuck with me because it was so profound. I didn't ask for consent, but I'm pretty sure that this will be just fine. Um, the client said, I don't want to perform.
mm,
Just like that. I don't want to perform. I want to be celebrated for simply existing. I cannot tell you how much I loved that sentence.
mm,
It stuck with me. I want to be celebrated for simply existing, not doing anything, not abiding by anything, not providing, not passing, just for
hmm
being. And I think when you're talking about this and the comments that actually can uplift us, it's celebrating somebody for simply existing because there's so much on how we perform, on how good we are as a drag queen, or how much we entertain, or how much, as I just said, like how much we pass.
hmm
And all of that takes away from the fact that you're authentically being you. Isn't that fucking fantastic? And I think that's what I'm really excited about because it's less about what we offer and
mm.
it's more about who we are. And I think that if we have that mindset, truly, I think that's pretty profound.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can get really locked up in needing to demonstrate a certain level of transness or androgyny for
Mhm.
non-binary folks. So, like, not all non-binary folks look androgynous. As we've joked on this podcast before, you put a baseball cap on me, I look like Coach. Um, but that doesn't mean I'm not non-binary. No one kind of
Yes.
um, owes anyone else the expression that they imagine someone is supposed to have.
And, and that is also so part of the system. You
Mhm.
can be this, but I need to clock you. I need to
Mhm.
label you. I need to make sure that you're part of this binary. And that's completely counter to being able to live authentically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no wrong way to be. Just don't harm other people. That's it. That's it. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Find ways to just celebrate people for expressing themselves and being themselves without pressuring them, or without
Mhm.
making it about you, right? That's one of those things that clocking is really like Jesse was saying earlier, like it's about that, like I can tell I
Yeah.
have this special ability or something
Yeah.
like that, or like, stop it.
Yeah. Stop it. And for
Stop it.
any, stop it. And for any therapist that is taking clients on, I just have one tip to tell you.
Mm,
Even if someone's a part of a community, it's not monolithically everyone's experience.
mm,
You don't have to know everything,
mhm,
but curiosity is your ticket to making somebody feel seen.
mm,
Don't make assumptions, just be kind and curious. I think that'll be something that actually will be incredibly helpful.
mm,
And what I mean by curious is just, what was that experience like for you? Tell me everything. It's not tell me about you being trans or about trans, like do the work yourself. But then when it comes to their experience, don't assume you know.
mhm,
And this is especially hard when we're a part of that community
mhm,
because we can put our own experiences on our clients. And just like any experience, allow
mhm.
their story to shine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there can be a risk in the kind of like shorthand of like, oh, I've looked into it, so I get it, or I am
Yeah.
this, so I get it.
Yeah.
And that kind of sometimes goes both ways too. Like I'll have clients say like, oh, well, you get it. And that's great. I love when my clients feel like I get it and I've got their back. But I will often also want to say like, totally, absolutely. I'm glad you feel safe here. It is unique for each person. So is there anything about what it's like for you that you would like me to know? 'Cause it could be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. I don't want to put my experience just in this because it's more about
Hmm.
me than you. I love that. And that'll be, I think, for any of us wanting to be there for somebody. Yeah. Let them
Yeah.
shine. If you, from this conversation, realize that working with somebody that feels safe might be really important for you, reach out. Reach out to us. We'll hook you up. We have a number of psychotherapists that are very well trained in being able to meet these expressions of authenticity with care and love. And so, yeah, we'd love to help you out if you want that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to take some time this month and every month to be radically pro-trans.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, check out our others. And stay tuned for even more episodes coming up.
Follow us and leave a review on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please tell your friends.
You can also follow us on Instagram too at Your Therapist Is Not Okay. Also, if you have any questions that you want us to answer, send us a DM there. We would love to answer your questions. And a lot of our topics come from listeners just like you.